So to expound a bit on my reel from today, people seem to be using the information that they got from the internal leverage stuff, which they all just stole from Chris. And you're trying to use it to create fear-mongering posts or look like they're smarter than everybody else. And it is a lack of understanding about the totality of how all of this works. So while the lats may have slightly different leverages throughout adduction, frontal plane adduction, and shoulder extension through the sag plane, by the time you get down to around closing that range of motion off 30 to 0 degrees, the whole lat is active. Now, does it mean you're going to have like 100% equal distribution of activation in all the divisions comparatively? No, but the thing is, you don't need it. That's overthinking training to a degree that's just absurd. It's actually a good example is when that lateral raise study came out and showed there was no real growth difference between dumbbell laterals and cable laterals where the resistance profile was different. People were still arguing and saying, well, one had more distal growth and the other had more proximal growth. Do you know that nobody's ever going to see, it's never going to be a visual difference? Like, you're never going to see a visual difference. The best thing that can do for us is help us understand, like, that if you're loading something more at a little bit longer length, you do tend to get more distal adaptations. If you're loading something at a shorter length, you tend to get more proximal, or depending on if it's a two-joint muscle, there could be proximal or distal adaptations occur depending on the function that you're training it with. So, but the thing is, visually, like, nobody's ever going to look at you and be like, oh, that dude must use cable side laterals with the cable set at wrist height. You guys obsessing over that stuff is crazy. The other thing is it doesn't even account for the totality of the training week. So, like, nobody's just going in and doing, one exercise and being like, okay, well, that's the training. If you're doing a chest press during the week, then the front delts get some stimulus. If you're doing a lateral raise, front delts get some stimulus. If you're doing overhead press, front delts get stimulus. So you guys see what I'm saying? Is like, over the course of the week, you don't need to pick an exercise for every division, joint angle, resistance profile, blah, blah, blah. You can be smart and pick some good movements that hit a couple of things really well, but worrying about lat divisions is so ridiculous. Like, none of you are stepping on the Olympia stage unless, Terrence sees this. He is, but the rest of you, you're not. You're just recreational lifters. So why you're arguing and worrying? So as I was saying, the majority of you guys are just recreational lifters, just like me. So you don't need to squabble or worry about, am I hitting my lower lats right? Am I hitting my lumbar lats? I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can say, I want to emphasize one muscle a little more. Like, if you wanted more upper chest, you do the cable upper chest fly that I gave you. But generally speaking, you're not going to see significant atrophy at all, if you're just following a good basic training split and hitting a muscle 2 to 3 times a week. You don't have to get so specific that you're like, this motion trains the anterior distal part of the, whatever muscle it is that you're looking at. You don't have to do that. Just pick some good motions and progressively overload them over time. Same with the lateral raise and a frontal plane press. Well, the anterior delts and the lateral delts have very similar leverage throughout the whole joint angle range of motion. There's a little bit of a switch off. So the lateral delts have a little bit better leverage at the bottom, up to around 80 degrees. And then the anterior delts start to kind of take over and have a little bit better leverage. The point is, if you're doing an overhead press in the frontal plane and you're giving maximal effort, you're still going to be getting near maximal degrees of motor unit recruitment out of both of those heads of the delt. So this whole squabbling about you're going to have fibers atrophy, that all comes from my and Chris's work. And people are bastardizing it, and they don't understand it, and they do not understand how to put it together. They use it for rage bait and arguments.